Hi, and welcome to my channel. My name is Amanda. We're going to do a mid-month check-in. I have been having such a hard time reviewing the books that I have read. I used to be so good about, as soon as I finished a book, I had to type up my thoughts on it before I went on to the next book. Like, even if I was laying in bed and I finished a book, I would get out my phone, type it on my phone, what I thought about it, just even if it was just a few lines, and then I would go on to the next book. And for the last 2 months almost, I have not written a single thing about the books that I have read. And it's been really hard to pin down why I'm doing that exactly. And it's also been difficult because if you saw my TBR video for this month, I couldn't figure out what I wanted to read in the month of May. And I know part of it is because we're about to move, and so we're kind of ending this first bit of our life in for this year where we are, and we'll be moving to a new place. So I know that that's part of it. I don't know what's going on. So anyway, I still wanted to go ahead and talk about the books that I finished in the first half of May. So I have my little list right here. So back in April, I read Deal with the Devil. And it's a book by Kit Rocha, and it's set in the future. And they're called mercenary librarians, but when you say that to me, I thought like actual librarians, and they are, but it's like there are no books because there's no paper, and so everything is digital, and they get digital copies of books that have been lost or people thought they were lost or whatever. So if you want to download a book, or you want to download any kind of information, handbooks or recipe books, anything like that, you come to their library, and they're kind of doing it without the government's knowledge. And it's not really the government. There is a big corporation that kind of is controlling everything. And it was like one of those slippery slopes that you didn't realize they were taking control until they had all the control. So what we learn is that government, or the corporation, has been doing certain things with cloning and just genetic enhancements, all kinds of stuff. And we have a person who is coming to hire the mercenary librarians to find something for him. And really, he has ulterior motives. So that is in the first one. And he is the leader of a group, and the mercenary librarians are a group, and they kind of come together in the first book. And so then the first book that I read in May was called The Devil You Know, which is the second book in that series. And so it just continues the involvement of the two groups with each other. They're probably listed as romance novels, but I think that the sci-fi parts of them and the military parts of them were really good as well. Also, if you saw my May TBR, you saw that I had a handful of physical books that I said I wanted to read, and I read 2 of those already in the first half. The only bad news is I read The House on Mango Street. It's not bad news. I read The House on Mango Street, and I read Dear Mr. Henshaw, and I had them both in physical form because I showed them to you. I don't now because I've actually gotten rid of them. We are in the middle of trying to get ready to move, so I still listen to them on audio, even though I had the physical books, because I just cannot read physical or ebooks. I just can't do it. Anyway, I mean, I can, but oh my gosh, it's hard to do. The House on Mango Street is a series of stories that take place in an area, and a lot of them involve the same girl, but not all of them. So it's just a middle grade historical fiction that I thought was really well done. Dear Mr. Henshaw is exactly what it sounds like. It is a boy writing to Mr. Henshaw, who happens to be his favorite writer because of one book that he read from the author. And so then the author writes him back. And we don't see the letters back to the boy, but in his letters, he references the things that Mr. Henshaw says to him. So it's just a nice little epistolary book. Then, for some reason, I wanted to go all the way back to the beginning of the Kay Scarpetta series. And so I read Postmortem by Patricia Cornwell. Is it Cornwell? Why do I always want to say it's Cromwell? It is Cornwell. Okay, I was right. Anyway, maybe because of Oliver Cromwell, I just need to remember that they're not the same. So I listened to this one. It was on my Scribd, like part of the subscription, not one of the ones that goes away after a certain period of time. So if any of you have Scribd and you've been wondering if you might like these mystery books, I say jump right in, because they should not affect the books you can continue to read, especially if you wait and read them at the end of your monthly cycle. Whenever it resets, read them at the end. You'll be good to go. This is a police procedural, and I think every police procedural came after this. In fact, I am planning to do a video just on Patricia Cornwell's series, the Case Scarpetta series, 5 books at a time. That is my plan anyway right now. So I've got that going kind of in the background, but I read that book. Then I read a romance book called I Think I Might Love You. And I read this because someone recommended Christina C. Jones to me. And I had not read any of her books before until I started reading this. And then I realized I had actually already read this one. But it's the beginning of a series and it's short. So I decided to go ahead and reread it so that I would be ready to continue on with whatever comes next. Then I read The Last Thing He Told Me. Now, this is a really popular mystery, and I wasn't sure if I would like it, since a lot of people have loved it. And also, apparently, it's a limited TV series. I just saw as I was pulling up the book to make sure I say everything about it right. So it's about to be a TV show, The Last Thing He Told Me. Anyway, here's the thing about it. There's 2 things about it, actually. I knew it involved a family, and generally those domestic kind of home thrillers I don't like them. Ends up being too many secrets and too many lies, and I don't like them. However, the twist that was on this one, and I don't mean a twist like, oh my gosh, I didn't see that coming, although there was that in there. But the twist that I'm talking about is that it's not the same kind of domestic thriller that I'm used to seeing. That kind of twist. Like, it was a twist on what the normal secrets and lies are all about, and I really, really liked it. A lot more than I expected to. One of the other things that I'm doing is going through my list of books that I bought a long time ago on Audible, and I just haven't listened to them yet. So I'm trying to spread those out throughout my other readings. And so the next book I read was The Dare by Lauren Landish. I like a lot of Lauren Landish's books. That was hard to say. And so I decided to just pick them up if I ever saw them on sale. So I'm sure that that's where this came from, is that it was on sale one time and I just grabbed it. This is called The Dare because our female protagonist is constantly being dared by her best friend, and she dares her best friend. They just have a game of dare going all the time, and there are certain rules, like it can't involve anything illegal, and there are all kinds of stuff, all kinds of little rules that they have. But one of the dares has to do with this guy at work. And so then things happen after that. So it was really cute, just like Lauren Landish's books are. It is very open door and steamy. So do not go into it without knowing that, just in case you don't want to read that. The next one was my first J.T. Ellison book called All the Pretty Girls. And this one was so disturbing. I love the cover of this, by the way. I think that it looks so cool. But there is a serial killer happening in Nashville, or we join the case in Nashville. But what's actually happened is that the serial killer is traveling around and he kills a person and cuts off their arms or their hands. And then at the next crime scene, when he dumps the next body, he leaves the hand from the previous girl at the new scene. It is weird and really cool. Anyway, this is a police procedural or FBI procedural, whatever you want to call it. But this centers around Taylor Jackson, who works homicide in Nashville. And she has a sort of secret relationship with an FBI agent. Not secretive in that either one of them are in a relationship, but secretive in that they're both police officers and they're trying to not just advertise it everywhere that they're together. However, I really think maybe they are not going to worry about that going forward, but in this book, they still are. This is book 1 of the Taylor Jackson series. Let me see how many books there are, because I'm definitely going to keep reading. It looks like there are 9 books. 9 books. And I already have book 2 on my TBR. I added it immediately. So I really enjoyed it. I like the female police officer procedurals. I do. I don't know why I do so much, because honestly, I mean, I kind of know how the cycle's going to go, but still, I really like them. Then I switched back to romance, and it's called Finding Kyle. And this one was, speaking of police officers, Kyle was undercover, deep undercover, in a motorcycle gang that was dealing in slavery or human trafficking and drugs and murder and all of that stuff. And Kyle is testifying or waiting to testify. And so he's not exactly in witness protection, but he is kind of. And so he is doing it on his own. Anyway, he has found a lighthouse in the middle of nowhere, and he is working at this lighthouse for the summer. And his neighbor is a very persistent woman who just wants to be friends at first. And so anyway, this is just a romance about the two of them and what happens when his people catch up to him like we know they're going to. The next book that I finished was The Dark Tower. I finished the book, which means I finished the series. I have a lot of things to say about it, and I'm still thinking that maybe I will do a dedicated video just about The Dark Tower, maybe the 7 books. Maybe I will do a let's discuss, and I'll go through each one of the books. So if you're interested in anything like that, if you have not read the series but you're wanting to, what kind of information do you want about it? And if you have read the series, would you be interested in hearing me chat about it, or even chatting with me about the series on here, to just talk about the things that we liked and the things that we didn't like, and the wonderful characters and the horrible characters and all the things in between? I just want to know your thoughts about it. But it is finished. I have finished. And it was bittersweet, because I kept thinking, oh, I'm almost done. And then when I'm done, what happens after that? So anyway, speaking of being finished, I'm not finished, but I'm caught up on Finlay Donovan. I think it's Finlay Donovan Jumps the Gun is the name of this one. This might be my favorite one. They are at a police academy, the police academy. It's a civilian police. I don't remember what they call it, but anyway, it's where they invited some civilians in to see what police academy was like. And Finlay goes for whatever reason. I'm not going to get into all of that, but she doesn't have her children with her. And I think that's why I like this best, because I think Finlay is not a good mother. I've said that from the very first book. I just don't think she's a good mom. And now we're in book 3 and her kids are not there very much. And this was my favorite book. As far as just like straight up mystery goes, I liked this one best. There's not that much of the nonsensical stuff that went along in the first 2 books. And so I think this was my favorite. I'm going to keep going with them. They're fine. They're not bad. They're not great. They're fine. And then back to Stephen King. Andrew and I finished Under the Dome. I know that this also is a movie or a TV show. I can't remember which one, but this one made me very frustrated. Like, I know that when you're writing fiction, you need your protagonist to lose all the time. Like, you're just making them lose kind of in a cyclical. Okay. You're just making them lose over and over again, so that when they win at the end, it is fantastic, right? But we know it's Stephen King, so they could literally lose and lose and lose and lose and lose and lose and then die. Like, there is no like, oh, but I know it's going to go up at the end. And so this book made me so frustrated because of all of the losses. Like, because the guy, like the bad guy, kept winning, and it made me so frustrated. This book drug on in the middle, but the premise of just a clear dome coming down over a city one day was fascinating. And my brain went everywhere with it. I just thought, what would I feel like if I was trapped inside there? How would I feel if I had gone to the grocery store the next town over, like some of the people did, and the rest of your family is trapped inside there? I loved that part. The whole imagining and the what ifs and the how he turned that, I loved. But there are so many things about it that I did not love. It falls squarely in the lower half, maybe lower third of my Stephen King books. Then, a high note, I read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I think I have a physical copy of this book as well. And this is one that I've been wanting to read. And I just kept putting it off because for some reason I was like, that's YA. It'll be okay. It won't be that great. Oh my gosh, it was so good. It is a senior project for a girl in school. And she's telling the story of a girl who went missing 5 years before, a high schooler. And the girl's boyfriend, a couple of days after she went missing, committed suicide. And everybody thinks that he did something to her. No body has ever been found. She's been missing for 5 years. So this girl, for her senior project, has decided to figure out what happened to Andy. And it is so good. It's also told, like, as the story is progressing, we get some present day stuff, but we also get interviews. And if you listen to it on audio, it's like a full cast audio where people are playing like when she's doing phone interviews, it literally sounds like they're on a phone doing an interview. It's so good. And I cannot wait till the next book to read the next book. I thought it was just so well done and so much better than I was expecting it to be. Finally, the last book that I have finished is called Make Mine Magic. And this is another one that I think I bought when there was a sale and I just picked it up and I saw it on my Audible and I was like, let me go ahead and listen to it because all of the Stephen King at this point was just frustrating me to death. So I picked this one up and started it. And it's about a girl from Texas who goes on her honeymoon to New York City, but she goes alone because at her rehearsal dinner the night before her wedding, her fiance was like, I can't do this. And he just left. She never heard from him, never once heard anything, the whole book. And she goes to New York anyway. She's like, I've already paid for this. This is my dream vacation. I've always wanted to go to New York and I've never been. And so she gets there. She sees this old lady who like stumbles and falls, and she goes over and helps her up and is like asking her if she's okay. And the old lady's like, yes, I'm fine, and invites her to tea. And so they go have afternoon coffee or tea. And our protagonist realizes that maybe there's some stuff going on later when she's approached by someone who invites her to go to a party, like a full-on stranger bumps into her and was like, hey, do you want to come to this party that I'm having tonight? And so she quickly finds out that maybe magic is a real thing, and she has accidentally gotten herself thrown right into the middle of an upheaval that's happening in New York City. So that was just really cute. It was a nice little break from everything else that I was reading, and I really enjoyed it. So much so that I went and looked up, this is not part of a series. Make Mine Magic is just a standalone, but when I went and looked up the author, she has 2 other series, and I put both of those first books on my TBR because I know I will enjoy her books. And that is all that I have read. I know that is a lot of books, especially because I haven't written about any of them, even though some of them I have very strong feelings about. There is one more thing that I wanted to talk about, and that is just to talk about the books that I've picked up recently. I'm not going to say in the last month or in the last few weeks. I'm not sure when I got all of these, but we'll just do a little mini book haul. First, this. Megan Miranda, The Last House Guest. This came from my neighbor. She texted me. Everybody who's a reader understands this. She texted me and she said, would you like to have this book? She sent me a picture of it. And I was like, sure. And she said, well, I bought it and I started reading it. And I thought, wow, this is very familiar. And so I texted my mother because they share books all the time. And her mom was like, yeah, we read that last year. So I got a book from my neighbor because she and her mom had already read it. Then I got the first 5. I know this is only 4. That's because book 1 is on my bedside table and I cannot be bothered to get up and go get it. But I got the first 5 books in the Discworld series. that video is coming when I finish all 5 books. So don't hold your breath, but it's coming eventually. Then for book of the month, this time I got Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. I don't know. It's got to be a romance, right? I honestly have no idea. Like, I picked it and I was like, all right, that looks good. I'll go with that. Then this also was an absolute cover buy, but this is True Love, or The True Love Experiment by Christina Lauren. I've read her books before and I like them, and I was like, you know what? These books are so pretty. Look how like red and purple and all kinds. Like, they're just pretty. And I thought, all right, I'm gonna have these pretty colored books on my shelf, and that's literally why I chose them. And then I added them to my list, so we will see when I actually get around to reading them. That is it for my little book haul and for the long list of books that I read at the beginning of this month. I didn't know there were so many books on there until I kept talking about them, and now I realize there's a lot of books on there. I'm not going to talk about what I'm currently reading, just because I'm currently reading a lot of stuff, and who knows when I will finish all of the things that I'm reading. But I will definitely be here at the end of the month to do a wrap up for the second half of May. That is also when we are moving out of our house. So I'm going to be here that week. The last week in May will be the last week in our house. So I will definitely be able to film, because nothing's getting packed up until right after that. So I will film and tell you guys what I'm reading in June during my transition month, and talk about what I finished in the month of May. If you've read anything that I talked about, I would love to talk about it more with you down in the comments. And if you have any opinion on The Dark Tower, on the Kay Scarpetta series, or Discworld, I would really like to know down below. I will go ahead and give you a spoiler alert. I researched many ways of reading Discworld, and it all comes down to me being a purist and starting with book 1. So we can talk about that more down below if you would like to as well. And I will see you in my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.